everybody, how are you doing today? My name is Brendan Reviews, and welcome to the 31 Days of Horror, Season 2, Episode 6. Suspiria is one of my favorite horror movies ever made, if not my favorite horror movie ever made. It has been heavily influential on me, as you can tell by the lighting, and it did get a sequel back in 1980, directed by the same guy who made the original. And this is a very touchy movie for me to talk about. How do you live up to one of my favorite horror movies, if not my favorite horror movie? Like, how do you live up to that? The answer is, you don't. Let's talk about 1980's Inferno. Directed by Dario Argento, it's about this woman. She is a poet and she travels out to Rome, right? And she picks up this book about the three mothers, and out of nowhere gets brutally murdered. Out of nowhere. Her brother Mark then travels to Rome to try to figure out what happened to her, and slowly but surely starts to discover what is truly going on. There's all these supernatural events going on and something's not making sense. And it's up to him to finally figure out what is going on and connect the dots between all of these murders that are taking place. Right away, we already have a problem. It just isn't that interesting. I'm sorry. The story itself isn't that interesting. Girl gets murdered, brother goes to find out what happened, finds out what happened, movie ends, right? And in my opinion, this movie just doesn't have as interesting of a plot as the original, and this is where most of the cons come in, and that is nothing about this movie is better than Suspiria. The direction isn't better, the acting isn't better, the lighting isn't better, the cinematography isn't better, the score isn't better. And that's probably my biggest thing with Inferno, is as a sequel to Suspiria, in my opinion, it is disappointing. But as its own horror movie, without acknowledging Suspiria even existed, is pretty good. I won't lie. It's a decent horror movie with some decent kills, gore, some memorable music, some decent lighting, and overall isn't as bad of a movie as I could make it out to be. So let's talk about the stuff that they get right in this movie, and that is mainly with the lighting and some of the music and some of the performances. The guy who plays Mark isn't necessarily the best performer in this movie, but lots of the cast in this movie does do a good job, especially with the main girl who gets killed at the beginning, that sparks the plot. Besides the main character of Mark, most of the acting in this movie is pretty good. The atmosphere is decent. It's not as good as Suspiria or even a movie like The Beyond, but the atmosphere is there. It's very gothic and very in your face with the colors at times, but it doesn't have that, it doesn't feel alive, if that makes sense. With Suspiria, the set felt alive, whereas in Inferno, it just feels like what I'm doing, putting lights up, and that's it. But another thing that this movie does get right is the kills. The kills in this movie are very fun, even if they're not as fun as Suspiria. They are very fun. We get a scene where this woman gets stabbed in the back and then repeatedly stabbed in the neck, whatever. We get a part where this guy gets butchered by cats, and we get another scene where a guy gets eaten alive by rats after getting his neck chopped up, getting his neck chopped into by a meat cleaver. We have some really elaborate kills, but easily the kill that gets to me the most is when the main witch, she grabs this woman's head and pulls her down, right? And uses this window, this glass pane, to just repeatedly smash it into her throat. And it makes me cringe every time I see it. With those kinds of just because you got kills doesn't make your movie the best movie it could have been. And that's just the biggest problem with this movie. It is so disappointing as a sequel to Suspiria. Overall, it has some decent moments, it has some good lighting, it has some good cinematography, the direction is good, but it's not Dario Argento's best, and I think that's the problem with this movie, is that this movie is not technically his best movie. And for it, I'm going to go ahead and give Dario Argento's Inferno a 6 out of 10. Well, guys, there you go. My name is Brendan Reviews, and I hope you guys have a great day, evening, night, whatever the fuck time you guys are watching this, and I'll see you all next time.